Welcome to another edition of HorseCenter, everyone. I am Brian Zipsey, and as always, I have the great pleasure of being joined by my co-host to the East Coast. That's Matt Schiffman. How are you today, Matt?
I'm good, Brian. I want to wish you a happy anniversary today.
Anniversary, Matt? My anniversary is not until late November.
Oh, I mean the HorseCenter anniversary, Brian. It's the 3-year anniversary of HorseCenter.
We've been doing this for 3 years, Matt. It seems much shorter.
Yes.
Good.
Yes, absolutely. We've done that many shows.
Awesome. HorseCenter is part of the family. Matt, let's move on. Let's not keep the folks in suspense what this show is going to be all about today. Matt and I are going to start looking at the Breeders' Cup. We're only 8.5 weeks away from the World Championships, the first ever to be run at beautiful Del Mar, where the turf meets the surf. Matt, should be interesting. There are some configurations of the track that change the distance of the race from tracks, as happens pretty much at every track. I think, interestingly, are the turf races. We have the turf sprint is going to be run at 5 furlongs this year, and the filly and mare turf will only be 1 1/8 miles this year. The dirt mile is 2 turns this year. Let's jump right in, Matt, and let's start at the top. We're going to go with the richest race of the Breeders' Cup Series. That's the Classic. It should be a race that decides the horse of the year, Mr. Schiffman.
It certainly should. If one of the top 3 or so horses in the Classic wins the race, one of those will probably be horse of the year. And I also want to throw in, an emphasis of your statement that the Breeders' Cup is at Del Mar this year, and that could be a significant factor in the outcome. I mean, when it has been at Santa Anita over the years, that has always kind of favored the home track horses, and maybe this Del Mar surface might make that even more so, but that's going to be really interesting to see.
Good point, Matt. Certainly the turf course at Del Mar, and especially the dirt course at Del Mar, does play a little bit differently than Santa Anita. Especially this year, there's a little bit more depth to the dirt surface, a little deeper dirt surface, and that has played havoc, I think, with some horses' games, Arrogate most notably, and Santa Anita's been known, especially on fast days for the Breeders' Cup, as a track that favors speed. Del Mar could play that way, but it could play far different. The Breeders' Cup Classic, we already started to talk about Arrogate, Matt. I think the race that we have to look at a little bit is that Pacific Classic. And by no means did Arrogate run a bad race, but he looked like he was floundering again just a little bit over that Del Mar surface until he kicked it in the last 1/8 of the mile. And he was really running at Collected late. Collected had a pretty simple, easy lead, and he held off Arrogate. Will either of those two from the Pacific Classic be your top choice?
They will not, Brian. I am going to go with Gun Runner. I think his races this year have just been absolutely spectacular. He seems to be a horse that's getting better and better, and maybe what you said about the Del Mar track being deeper than Santa Anita will be a good thing. So maybe it will be more to the liking of the horses that have been running in New York and in the East. I like Gun Runner.
Gun Runner has been the best horse in America this year. I think of that there is no doubt. Arrogate looked awfully good without Gun Runner in Florida real early in the year. And then, of course, Arrogate proved that he was the best 1.25 mile dirt horse in the world in the Dubai World Cup. But a lot has changed since then. Gun Runner's only gotten better. Arrogate has lost twice, both at Del Mar, obviously significant there. Collected did well. He's undefeated this year, but I think the pace, and this is something that I think we need to talk about a little bit, Matt, the pace of the Classic could be more than we've seen in any significant dirt race this year. Collected wants to be on the lead, and Gun Runner basically wants to be on the lead, and there might be a few others in there that basically want to be on the lead. So this Classic could have 10 furlongs, could have a pretty strong pace. And I just said Arrogate proved he was the best 1.25 mile dirt horse in the world about 5 months ago. you gotta worry about Arrogate at 10 furlongs, don't you?
You certainly do, and of course there'll be people that talk about the fact that Gunrunner has not won at the 1.25 mile distance, which is true, but he hasn't had that many starts in it, and his efforts in the 10 furlongs have not been bad. In the Derby, he ran a big race when he hadn't quite figured out his best running style yet. So I'm less worried about the 10 furlongs with Gunrunner than I used to be, certainly with his progression this year.
Absolutely, Matt. And I should add the Dubai World Cup, where Arrogate had a bad start and still ran down Gunrunner at 1.25 miles, was on a track that looked to certainly be playing for horses rallying that day. So a different track may only do better for Gunrunner. Gunrunner is going to be my top pick. He's been so good this year. And Arrogate, there's certainly questions since the Dubai World Cup and certainly questions at Del Mar. It wasn't easy for me to come to this conclusion of Gunrunner over Arrogate as my top pick right now. It's close. And I certainly like those two 1-2 with a gap down to Collected and any possible 3-year-old, maybe West Coast, maybe IRAP as horses who could possibly threaten. But for me, it came down to Gunrunner and Arrogate. Arrogate did show good signs late in the Pacific Classic, but I still have to agree with you. I'm going Gunrunner as well. And that would make Gunrunner the horse of the year if we're right about this, Matt.
Without question.
All right, Matt. So we did the Classic. Now we're going to jump into the female version of the Classic. It used to be called the Ladies Classic, although it used to be called the Distaff before that. And I'm glad that they went back to that name. The Distaff is what it should be. So let's talk Breeders' Cup Distaff, Matt. I want to know your top choice.
Well, Brian, we certainly have to say that the Distaff lost a little bit of its luster with the retirement of Songbird, but it still is a strong field and is still going to be a very good race. My top pick, and we'll see if you agree with me on this one, Brian, is Forever Unbridled. Her performance has been just fantastic in her recent races. This is a horse that can handle the distance and is getting better and better. And Dallas Stewart really knows how to give her time between races and run a big one. It's not going to be easy by any means, but I'm going with Forever Unbridled. That's also because I got a little bet overseas in Great Britain at very, very big odds on Forever Unbridled through a friend of ours.
Absolutely. Forever Unbridled is a mare that has gotten better and better. Matt, do you realize that I've been a fan? I've been watching Forever Unbridled since she was a 2-year-old here in Kentucky. I've always liked her, and she's getting better and better. It's a good pick of yours. In last year's Breeders' Cup Distaff, she showed that she fits with the best filly and mares on dirt in the country. And then, of course, her race over Songbird. There are questions whether Songbird, if that was 100% Songbird, 90% Songbird, or even less than that. I certainly thought Forever Unbridled was best that day, deserved winner of the Personal Ensign, and a real big threat to win the Breeders' Cup Distaff. But she can't be my top pick, not when Stellar Wind, not when the Pretty Daughter of Curlin is around. Stellar Wind is really experienced and successful over the Del Mar main track there. Stellar Wind, I think, has been unlucky in Breeders' Cup Distaffs past. 2 years ago, she ran second to Stop Charging Maria when I think only the bumping by the winner stopped her from Stellar Wind from winning that race. Last year, of course, she got a very slow break, and that hurt her chances. Forever Unbridled finished 3rd and 4th to 2 great horses in Beholder and Songbird last year. Stellar Wind, I think, is better this year as a 5-year-old, and she was awfully good last year. Home field advantage, Stellar Wind. If I had to pick them on a neutral site, I'd probably still go with Stellar Wind just a bit. But given Del Mar, I have to like Stellar Wind even more. And I think she's got a little bit better tactical speed in Forever Unbridled. So if the pace is fast, she can rally with Forever Unbridled. But if the pace is just a little bit slower, which it very well may be, she has the advantage there as well. So for all those reasons, Stellar Wind is my top pick. Both are undefeated this year, so it should be a great matchup between the two. We got to talk about the 3-year-olds a little bit, Matt. I'm thinking Abel Tasman. I'm talking about Unique Bella possibly coming back. Elate has looked really good in her last few starts. And then, of course, the filly that Stellar Wind has been barely beating recently, that's Valdori. So there's a lot of other options still in the distaff as well.
Yeah, there sure are. And you mentioned Unique Bella. She's been training since she got back working. She's been training gangbusters out there in California. Elate is going to try the older horses in the Beldame. So we'll get another measure about how good that horse is getting. And Abel Tasman has just been fantastic in her last 3 races or so.
Abel Tasman collecting Grade 1 wins. Valdori, we shouldn't forget about Valdori as well as she's run in California this year. All right, Matt, so we have our top picks in the Classic, the distaff. How about we go turf? A 1.5-mile turf race, we probably will see the defending champion, Highland Reel. But there's a lot of good European possibilities right now. Of course, we never know for sure the Europeans that will make it over. I'm thinking Highland Reel, Ulysses, who both came over last year, the fantastic 3-year-old filly Enable, Cracksman, another trending European. Any one of those come over, they will be among the favorites. The Americans, I'm not so sure. Sadler's Joy looked good last time. Oscar Performance is certainly showing that he belongs with any American turf horse. The 3-year-old from Brian Lynch's barn. The brown horse, Money Multiplier, has come back with 2 good races. So a decent bunch from America, but Europeans probably have us a little bit over a barrel at 1.5 miles right now.
Yeah, I agree, Brian. This is not a year when there's no main sequence in here. There's no Wise Dan in here, kind of horses that we had in America that could compete with the Euros. My top pick is going to be Highland Reel. And just because he knows how to make the trip, he's a known quantity. He knows how to come over here and win in the Breeders' Cup. And that pick for me is going to be representative that I think a Euro is going to win this race.
I'm going to agree with you, Matt, on the Euro winning this race. I'm going to pick a different Euro. If Enable comes over, she's very interesting. Obviously, Cracksman, another one that I could easily pick come race day. But Ulysses actually came over last year. Didn't run poorly, but Highland Reel got out there. Highland Reel has great speed. Highland Reel legs firm turf. Highland Reel has done well in several trips over the years. So, you have a good pick. But Ulysses is a better horse this year. Last year he was 3. This year he's 4. He's really peaking over in Europe. He's going to come over again. And I think if there's just a little bit of pace, Ulysses might take the whole thing down the lane. So I'm going to go with Ulysses. Yeah, Europeans, depending on who comes over, they probably will be my first few picks in the Breeders' Cup turf. Now, 1.5 miles on turf is one thing, Matt, but how about 6 furlongs on the dirt? Totally different kind of race. The fur will fly. And I think this year, more than some years, the fur will fly early.
Yeah, Brian, but I have to go with Drefong repeating again. His race at Saratoga in the Forgo just a couple weeks ago was absolutely fantastic, and he also has run well at Del Mar. He broke his maiden at Del Mar. I know this track surface is a little bit different this year, but and I know Drefong is not going to be a big price, but he's going to be very, very hard to beat in that race.
He's going to be very hard to beat, maybe, but he's going to be very bet. He's going to be below 2-1. He might even be getting near even money, and I don't like him at those odds. I think there's a lot of speed lining up this year, more so than recent years. If you have horses like El Deal and Imperial Hint and Drefong, we could see one of these old-fashioned 43 and 4 half miles. And if that's the case, I think somebody's going to come and get him. Roy H. has looked really good of late. He was unlucky out in California, and you saw him, how well he did in Belmont. I think he could win. Ransom the Moon certainly has gotten very good in California. But I don't think we should forget about the New York bred, Matt. Mind Your Biscuits, for whatever reason, did not run his race in a race where Drefong kind of dominated early, didn't have a lot of pace to worry about. I'm seeing a whole different scenario in the Breeders' Cup. I expect Mind Your Biscuits to show the kind of form that he showed all year, frankly, or even more than a year. I'm gonna draw a line through that Forgo performance. And if they do run 43 and change, like I think might happen this year, Mind Your Biscuits, the good Mind Your Biscuits, I think has a great shot. And I tell you what, after the Forgo, we might all of a sudden get some nice odds on Mind Your Biscuits. So I'm gonna go with the Biscuit as my top choice in the Breeders' Cup Sprint, picking up the pieces of a very fast pace.
Fair enough, Brian. I'm a big fan of Mind Your Biscuits also. My one concern is that they're going 6 furlongs and not his favorite distance of 7 furlongs.
True. 7 furlongs probably better for the Biscuits, but if they run 43 and change, 6 is plenty for the Biscuit. All right, Matt, we went to the Sprint. Now we're going to go back to the turf. We're going to talk about the Breeders' Cup Mile. We just talked about European domination being a possibility in the Breeders' Cup Turf, a strong possibility in the Breeders' Cup Turf. Might it be the same in the Breeders' Cup Mile?
All right. Breeders' Cup Mile again, Brian. I think it's going to be another race for the Europeans. The mile distance is the marquee distance over in Europe, and they're going to have plenty of quality horses coming here. And once again, I just don't think we've got the level of horses to compete with, again, whichever Euros come over. It's always hard to know, but I'm going to pick Ribchester out of the group to represent the Euros. I think a Euro is going to win. Ribchester won a big race at Royal Ascot. Brian, when you were there, was that one of the days when you were there?
I did not see Ribchester in person, no.
Okay, but that's going to be my pick in there. But I think whatever group of Europeans come in, one of them is going to be the winner in the mile.
Okay, Matt, while I agreed with you with the Breeders' Cup Turf, I'm going to go against you in the mile. I tell you what, since Goldakova, the American horses have done pretty darn well in the Breeders' Cup Mile. I think there is a little advantage coming over here, whether it's the warm weather, the firmer turf, the different configuration of the American tracks. It gives us a real fighting chance. Whereas a mile and a quarter, or a mile and a half of the turf, I think the class will often tell. In the mile, I think we can get the job done again. We've done it most I guess 4 out of 5 since Goldakova's last win. So I think the Americans have a real shot in the mile. Problem is, I'm not sure which American is best suited to win it this year. If Ribchester, if Winter, if Barney Roy, if Churchill come over, they're probably a deserving favorite or top 2 favorites. They're all very classy milers over the year. But I'm looking for an American. And I tell you what, World Approval, Matt. Cassies have had good luck in the Breeders' Cup and turf races of late, especially. And World Approval is a classy horse who I think finally they learned what his best distance is with his nice win at Saratoga and the 4-star Dave. He does like a little cut in the ground. I don't know if he'll get that at Del Mar, but I think World Approval is a classy horse who can run a big race in the Breeders' Cup Mile this year. Distance should be good. Del Mar should be good for him. So I'm going to throw in another horse with some odds, and I'm going to say World Approval. I think he's going to run in Woodbine, so that'll be a big prep for him in a week or two. World Approval, Cassie's classy, cutting back in distance. He looks good to me, so I'm going to go with him as my Breeders' Cup Mile pick. Now we stay on the turf, Matt. We're going to talk filly and mare turf. You've picked the Euros in the first 2 turf races. I can only assume that you're going to pick another Euro filly and mare turf.
Oh, come on, Brian Zipsy. You know me better than that. There's no way I'm picking a Euro in the filly and turf mare. It's all Lady Eli. It's going to be a fantastic end to her just superlative career. The distance is perfect for Lady Eli. She loves the hard surface, so most likely that's what she'll get. And finally, Lady Eli will be an Eclipse Award winner.
Absolutely, Matt. She might be an Eclipse Award winner for the first time in her marvelous career this year, which is a little bit surprising. But yes, she's never won an Eclipse Award. This is her best year yet, it looks like, or she's on her way to possibly her best year yet. I don't know that she's ever looked better than she did last time winning at Saratoga. She won 2 graded stakes at Saratoga. The Boston Spa was just fantastic. I think you're right. A 1.8 miles, probably a firm turf course at Del Mar should be right up her alley, and probably both of those things do give her advantage over the good Europeans that come in. Of the other Americans, maybe the 3-year-old New Money Honey is one to think about, because her turf record is pretty spectacular as well. And she went out to California last year and ran huge in the juvenile fillies turf. She's a very good 3-year-old. She'll be coming back off dirt, back on turf where she belongs. So watch out for New Money Honey. Grand Jet ran a very sneaky good race in the Beverly Days. So I think she's an import, but I think she's a very interesting import. Of the Europeans, though, if the few of the ones that I think might end up in here do end up in here, Queen's Trust is the defending champion. I don't know if I like her as much in a 1.8 miles, but Rhododendron and Winter, maybe especially Winter, but Rhododendron as well at 9 furlongs. I think both of those Euros are very capable at a 1.8 miles. And if Rhododendron or Winter come over and run their race, Lady Eli will have her hands full in this filly and mare turf. I'm with you, though, Matt. I'm rooting for Lady Eli. And right now, I'd have to say Lady Eli is the clear choice to win this year's filly and mare turf. Matt, how about we go back to the dirt? It's the dirt mile, Matt. The dirt mile, 2 turns at Del Mar. Some interesting choices in here. We don't know for sure exactly what the field's going to look like, but we have a lot of top candidates right now that seems like this would be a good spot for them. Who's your top pick?
Yeah, right, Brian. It is a tough race to know exactly which horses are going to opt to go in the dirt mile, and it is a 2-turn dirt mile. Brian, after his last race, his last performance at Del Mar just a couple weeks ago, I got to go with Battle of Midway, the 3-year-old. He is a horse that's been getting better and better. Ran big in the Kentucky Derby, and at Del Mar in the Shared Belief, just won as easy as a horse could please. I'm going with Battle of Midway in the dirt mile.
Yeah, Jerry Hollendorfer's 3-year-old, who did run a very good third in the Kentucky Derby. I think the Haskell's a draw line race for him. He broke bad, rushed up into a fast pace, didn't have it late, but that just wasn't his day. Came back to Del Mar around 2 turns and ran huge, as you said, in the Shared Belief. There were some good 3-year-olds in there, and Battle of Midway was much the best. That's a good pit, man. Battle of Midway certainly can win this race. I think the favorite probably will be More Spirit, depending on what happens in the next 2 months. More Spirit finally got back on the work tab. Remember last we saw him, he just dominated in the Met Mile at Belmont Park back on Kentucky Belmont Stakes Day. And he had a nice workout finally less than a week ago. So More Spirit is back. I think they want to get one prep race. Maybe they'll bring him to Belmont again for the Kelso. If he wins the Kelso, More Spirit is the favorite, maybe the horse to beat. But there are some questions. He wasn't working well at Del Mar for a while, so they backed off him. His workout, return workout recently was very good. So More Spirit is certainly a horse to beat. He's not going to be my top pick, though, as the favorite. Battle of Midway, a lot of respect for him. Accelerate, Matt. Now, Accelerate is a horse that clearly likes the Del Mar surface. I think he's tractable. He could be on the lead or sitting in a stalking position. I like the fact that he's dropping back from the 1.25 mile distance where he didn't embarrass himself at all in the Pacific Classic. So I think Accelerate becomes a third Californian who certainly could win this race and ran well in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile last year. So big threat there. I'm going to go with Practical Joke, though. I think the pace of this race will be pretty good. Again, like I was saying in the sprint, not crazy fast like the sprint, but seems like there's a lot of horses that want to be near the lead in this race. And Practical Joke is just a really, really classy horse. I know he's 5 for 5 going 1 turn, 0 for 5 going 2 turns, but he's run well in all those 2-turn races. And the fact that this 2 turns is only a mile makes me think with a little pace. Practical Joke should be fine at this 2-turn distance. I like him to pick up the pieces. I'm going to go for an Easterner. I like what you said before about maybe Del Mar will be a little kinder to the East Coast horses. So what do you think about Practical Joke as my top pick?
I like it a lot, Brian. And for me, when I was trying to come up with a pick, it was back and forth between Practical Joke and Battle of Midway for me. The only thing that kept me off Practical Joke was the 2-turn thing. But I completely agree, Brian. He hasn't won going 2 turns, but he has not embarrassed himself in any of those races against top competition. And I don't know, you might actually get maybe a little bit of a decent price considering some of those other names that you mentioned.
Yeah, I think all 4 of the ones that we talked about, Matt, Battle of Midway, More Spirit, Accelerate, and Practical Joke I think More Spirit would be favored, again, depending on what happens in the next month. But all 4 of them, with their presence, I don't think anybody's real low. So it could be a very interesting betting race in the dirt mile, a good dirt mile this year. Let's move to another dirt race. We're going to drop a furlong down to the longer sprint. The filly and mare sprint is at 7 furlongs. It will be 7 furlongs again at Del Mar. And Matt, another interesting race. There's some good sprinters out there. Sky Diamonds has looked good. Paula Silver Linings had a big year. She lost her last one. By the Moon, Finest City, last year's champ. I think you like somebody else, though. I think you're going with a little bit of a youth movement for the filly and mare sprint.
Yeah, again, that's a tough race, a wide open race. Remember last year, like you said, Finest City won at a big price. I wouldn't be surprised if the winner of this race is also a big price, but I'm going to go with American Gal in here. Again, I'm just going to go with the known factor that this is a horse that has run well at Del Mar. She broke her maiden at Del Mar, and if she unleashes her big race, she's going to be tough in there.
American Gal truly has done nothing wrong in her career. She's obviously a big talent. I liken her to last year's sprint winner Drefong, kind of a similar pattern. They were lightly raced. She's raced a little more than Drefong had raced, but lightly raced, came to Saratoga, looked really good. Obviously, American Gal like 7 furlongs. I think she's the horse to beat right now for the filly and mare sprint, and certainly a good choice of yours. I'm going to go in a slightly different direction. All those good older mares I mentioned, I'm not going to pick either. I'm going to go with the 3-year-old as well, because I think what's happening here, Unique Bella is working well, but she hasn't raced in such a long time. I wonder if the distaff is not the way to go with Unique Bella. Jerry Hollendorfer is not the horse not the trainer to push his horses too much. So with only 1 prep race after a long layoff, I think Unique Bella, 7 furlongs, that seems to suit her really well. I kind of have a feeling that she'll end up in the filly and mare sprint and not the distaff. Get a good prep. As we've said, she's been working really well. If Unique Bella gets in 1 good prep, I think 7 furlongs should be perfect for her. And then from a class standpoint, from a talent standpoint, I like Unique Bella's chances against a solid field in the filly and mare sprint. So she'll be my top pick in that race. Speaking of sprints, Matt, how about we do one more? The turf sprint.
Let's do it. Turf sprint. Again, and always an interesting race. And like you said, it's 5 furlongs, so you got to be fast. And there's nobody faster than Lady Aurelia. And trainer Wesley Ward has said that he's prepping her for the Breeders' Cup. And we've seen what she can do over in Europe. They're going to have to catch Lady Aurelia in the turf sprint.
Yeah, Lady Aurelia is much, much better suited for the 5 furlongs. She could win anyway at 6.5 furlongs, like has been the case at Santa Anita, 3 of the last 4 Breeders' Cups. But at 5 furlongs, I think that's a big advantage for her. The talented 3-year-old filly obviously is the horse to beat in any huge turf sprint, no matter where we're talking about in the world. She's that good. She lost a heartbreaker last time with a little give in the course over in Europe, but she's an American. She's probably better suited for American racing than most of the Europeans that would come over for this race. and I haven't seen any American that is as fast as Lady Aurelia. 5 furlongs, there are some colts out there. I'm thinking Disco Partner for one. If it was 6.5, might be a different story. Green Mask, I think, would be my second pick, just because his form is really good, and I know he can. That veteran turf sprinter can handle 5 furlongs. But I'm going to agree with you for the third time now, 9 races, and I think we're on the favorite in this one. But if Lady Aurelia is close to 100% at 5 furlongs on the turf, I don't see anybody beating her at Del Mar. So we're going to both go with Lady Aurelia. Matt, that was 9 races. We agreed on 3. We disagreed on 6, which is nice. Hopefully we went over. We mentioned all the top candidates in these races. We're not going to touch. There's 4 juvenile races, of course, the juvenile fillies, juvenile turf, and juvenile fillies turf. Too early, 2 months out or so, too early to touch those, to really give top picks in any of those races. But we have some ideas that we're formulating already, but we're going to watch the preps as they go closer. Matt, who's your best bet out of all these horses?
Oh, that's a good question, Brian. Best bet meaning, horses that I would most like to win. Well, you guys all know that that would be Lady Eli. I don't know. I think I'm going to say Forever Unbridled is my best bet on the card.
Very nice, Matt. And the Breeders' Cup Distaff, of course, last year was the race of the Breeders' Cup. My best bet is the same race, different horse. Breeders' Cup Distaff. I love Stellar Wind, so we'll have to duke it out on that one, folks. I hope you enjoyed our early picks for Breeders' Cup 2017. 8.5 weeks out. Matt and I are already excited for the Breeders' Cup, the first ever at Del Mar. We will see you again next week on HorseCenter. I want to remind you to subscribe to our YouTube channel here at Horse Racing Nation. Thank you to our sponsor, the best contest site out there, Derby Wars. Parting shots from you, sir.
Yeah, Brian, 8.5 weeks, only 57 days. I don't know. That sounds like less to me, Brian, but we'll start all of our coverage of the Breeders' Cup on Horse Racing Nation. And as always, I have to thank our producer, the one and only Brett Workman.
Thank you, Brett. And thank you all for watching every week on HorseCenter. We will see you next week.